I came to the US in 2002 to study film in New York. I never imagined that 23 years later, I would be a US citizen and doing a video on YouTube about my journey. Let me introduce myself if this is the first time you're watching me on YouTube. And this topic or this story is my journey from student to US citizen, the unexpected expat journey. I am Naina Kaputi. I'm the founder and CEO of the Expat Woman. I'm originally from India and I'm also a LinkedIn coach and trainer and an aspiring YouTuber. So let's go back to my journey. So I did not have a background in film. I actually had a background in science, in zoology, molecular biology, food tech, biotech, etc. From the time I was very young, I loved to do art. I liked drawing, I liked creating pictures. If you looked at all my notebooks in school, they were always full of doodles because I was always doodling even in class. And when I finished pre university in India, I was thinking about doing a degree in art, but then I wasn't sure. And my dad, being an engineer, and a lot of men in my family were engineers. And of course, at that time, maybe things have changed now, but the focus was on being a doctor or engineer or a lawyer. And to please my dad, and also because I wasn't sure if I wanted to pursue a career in art in those days, being studying art, graphic arts, etc., weren't that popular, maybe because the jobs that were available weren't as high paying as if you were an engineer or doctor. So I decided to do science and I did my bachelor's and master's in science, but I never really enjoyed science. And it was very structured. I mean, I found it fascinating. I enjoyed learning, especially when I was doing my master's and I did courses in molecular biology and learned about DNA and all that fascinating stuff. But I'm not a lab person. But I'm not really someone who can work in a lab. I am a people's person. I'm also very creative. And I finally decided I was going to throw caution to the wind and go to New York to study film. I also wanted to give a little more background about my interest in film. My uncle and my cousin were both filmmakers. I had accompanied my cousin on a couple of his shoots, and I just felt maybe film is what I wanted to do. So I came to New York with a suitcase and a half because I was only planning to go there for a short time. I took a very intensive course in filmmaking, and I also had a job lined up for me when I went back, which was for a nonprofit helping them make films about various projects they were involved with. And I thought that was really exciting because I was also looking at working in the nonprofit field. I had a taste of the corporate world and I just didn't like it. And so that was my journey to coming to New York. And actually, when I applied for my visa, I don't remember what visa it was, some kind of student visa. I'm sure people are curious about what the visa is, and I don't even have any records anymore about that visa. But I remember I had to go to Chennai. So I live in a city called Bangalore, and they didn't have a US embassy, so I had to go to Chennai. I think it's about a 6 hour train ride and maybe an hour by plane. My mom accompanied me, and I went to the embassy. And again, maybe things have changed, but when I went to the US embassy, you had to wait in this room with long, hard benches. It just didn't feel very comfortable. It didn't feel very welcoming. And then they call you in. You have to have all your papers. So I had a letter from the organization that was offering me the job, saying that when I came back from my film course, I would be working for them. I had some financial assets, so I had to bring that along. And the thing with the US embassy, when they give visas to Indians, even though there are so many Indians in the US who are very successful, they limit the number of Indians coming to the US. And when you're a single woman, they're afraid you will move to the US and then marry a US citizen and then bring your family over. Again, I've not read any documents about this, but this was generally what I heard. And a lot of Indians apply for US visas, and not everyone gets a visa. In fact, when I was standing in line, the woman in front of me, her visa got rejected, or her application for her visa got rejected. So I was like nervous whether I would get my visa, but I did. But the guy was kind of sarcastic, and he said, when he gave me the visa, he said, just want to let you know that in the US, we don't say film, we say film. Because some Indians pronounce film as film, and he knew I was going to study film in New York, and I was kind of put off by that. He didn't say congratulations, and also just the way the whole setup was, the people were not friendly in there. So I just didn't like the experience, but I got the visa and I was very excited. And then I came to New York, and because I didn't plan to stay, I didn't do too much research about the US. And I'd also say that I lived in kind of a bubble in India. India is very diverse in the sense of there are people from all parts of India, at least in Bangalore and Mumbai, and then Pune, the three cities that I lived in. So you meet people from different parts of India. They speak different languages, they might look different, the cultures might be different, but there aren't too many folks from other countries living in India. So I had traveled abroad. I worked for organizations that had foreign visitors or had collaborations with foreign companies. So I had met people from other countries, but largely my exposure to the international world was through my travels. I'd been to several countries by then. I'd been to Egypt and Israel and Nepal, Sri Lanka, Belgium, France, the Netherlands, and I'd stayed in the Netherlands for a while. I think it was a month or 2 months because I had some training with the company I worked for there. So I had lived and traveled abroad, lived very short, but I still lived in a kind of bubble. I was a kind of girl who only read fiction and watched movies. I watched a lot of Hollywood and British movies, and then, of course, TV shows, but I didn't have too much exposure to, I'd say, cross cultural skills, dealing with people from different countries, etc. So, culture shock, dealing with different cultures, navigating a new country. I didn't read up about it. I just went very blindly to New York. I was excited, but also I was very nervous. And that's when everything hit, the culture shock, the loneliness, feeling like I didn't belong, even though the film courses that I took, the program that I did had quite a bit of diversity. There was some, I'd say mostly women from other countries. The men were mostly US based. And I have like a funny story where this guy was from a small town in the US, and I don't think he had ever met an Indian woman before. It must have been a really small town. I don't even remember where he was from. And he asked me, "Do you guys have cars in India?" And I was so taken aback. And no one had ever asked me a question like that before. Since then, I've been asked many different questions, but no one's asked me a question. I'd say that is the dumbest or stupidest question I've ever got asked. And if you've been asked a really strange question when you moved abroad by either a local or someone from another country, do share it in the comments. But he asked me, so he said, "Do you have cars in India? How do you go to work?" And I said, "No, I have a pet elephant and I ride the elephant to work." And I thought he might have been joking, but he was dead serious. So that was like, wow, people really don't know much about other countries. Of course, I know there are many Americans who have lived and worked abroad who have spouses or partners from other countries, but that was my experience. And then, of course, just dealing with a different country in terms of taking public transport. At that time, I also would convert everything into Indian rupees, the US dollar to Indian rupees. I was a student, so I wasn't earning any income, and I was afraid of I would run out of money. So anytime I bought something, I said, "Wow, that costs so much in." When I converted into Indian rupees, it's so much cheaper in India. I think the only things that I found like affordable were in the malls, and they had a lot of sales. I remember I didn't even know much about the malls. I was buying clothes from maybe Walmart, like really crappy clothes maybe. At that time I thought they were great. I didn't even know about what stores are good stores, which ones are the mediocre stores. That shows you how little homework I did. The only thing I came prepared for was the weather, because it was I think it was August, maybe. So I had checked out the weather. I learned about how, the New York grid works, like, and I've forgotten that being so long, but where I was staying at the Y, and then of course the first day they took us on a tour, a little tour of New York. We went to Chinatown. We figured out how to use public transport, and then I figured out how to get from the Y to my it was the New York Film Academy, how to get there. I had to learn on the journey about being an expat, or that time I was a foreign student to international student. Luckily, I spoke English, so I didn't have that barrier. My heart goes out to people who speak a different language. Anyway, fast forward, I went through the program, and then I had met my husband, and that I'll do another story about, but that time he wasn't my husband. But I met him. He came to New York. He was living in San Francisco. He came to New York to meet me, and he invited me to come visit San Francisco with him, and we got engaged and married very soon after that. It all happened very quickly. Again, it was not planned. And of course, then I landed up living in the US. And we went to a lawyer, and he or she, I don't remember who it was, said that if I went back on a fiance visa, it would take me, I don't know, many months or many years to come back to the US. So it was better if I got married. So we got civilly married. And my husband's originally from San Francisco. His family, his grandparents are from France, Switzerland, and Italy. So he's Italian, Swiss, French, but he's third generation. I'd say he's more American than European, though of course I think the common thread is we're between Indians and Italian. He's very Italian, even though he's American. Is we love food, we love our family, and we're also both Catholic. So even though I married someone from a different race, country, we did do have a lot in common. But when after I moved to San Francisco, I realized I was not prepared at all for expat life. And again, because I hadn't done any research, the whole idea of homesickness, loneliness, culture shock, they were all new to me. Making friends, all I knew was that I had lost my identity, that from being a working woman, then a student, now I was just a spouse. I didn't have a job. If I went to parties, people would ask me, "What do you do?" So I started avoiding talking to people because I couldn't work initially because I didn't have a work permit. Now, the advantage I had was because I married a US citizen, I got my work permit maybe 6 months after I married him, and a green card maybe a few years later. But that not being able to work for a while was really hard on me. And one tip I want to give people is, if you're waiting for your work permit, or if you can't work, take time for yourself. Like, I was so obsessed with getting a job, I was just sending out resumes, emails, looking at in those days there was only Craigslist, I think. I'm not sure. There were not many options to find jobs online, but I should have spent more time playing tourist, like exploring San Francisco, getting to meet people who were similar to me. I did volunteer a little bit, but I volunteered with organizations or projects that didn't really attract people like me. I tried finding international women's groups, expat groups, there was nothing. And actually, that's what led me to found the Expat Woman. And this is what I wanted to add, that sometimes a challenge or a hurdle leads you to that aha moment and leads you to create that business or that side hustle or get a job because you want to solve a problem, because you face the problem. And then I wouldn't say I found the solution when I created the Expat Woman, but I knew how lonely it was, especially for professional women moving abroad. And I knew no matter which country you came from and which country you moved to, the hurdles and challenges was similar. Everyone faces homesickness, everyone faces culture shock, everyone faces loneliness, everyone faces a loss of identity, expat guilt. I've also created a video about the 5 challenges that expats face that most people don't talk about. I will link that in the description. I had a civil wedding, and then 6 months later, we had a church wedding. This was my first experience with a multicultural event because my husband's Italian, French, I'm Indian. So our wedding party at least the women and the girls all wore Indian outfits. I wore a sari because my husband said, "Why don't you wear a sari? Don't wear a gown." So even though I don't wear sari that often, I wore a sari, and the food was Indian and Italian, maybe some French as well. And of course, there was a mix of Indian folks and American folks. So it was beautiful. The music too, I think, was a mix of both. But that was my first exposure to something that was multicultural. And at that point, I wasn't even thinking of the expat woman. I never thought of myself as an entrepreneur. Sometimes from a pain or challenge or hurdle comes an opportunity, an idea, an aha moment, and that's what then led me to create the expat woman. And I had no idea how to run a business, so I took some courses. I found the Renaissance Business Center in San Francisco, and I took a course on how to start a business, and then I started the Expat Woman. Before I founded the Expat Woman, when I was looking for a job and sending out resumes and getting rejected, one of the first jobs I applied for was through a family friend. This woman owned a high-end photo studio, and she was looking for an office manager, and I applied, and I was given her phone number after she saw my resume because I had studied at New York Film Academy. I think she was open to hiring me because I had some film background, even though I wasn't going to be doing anything with film, and this was like photographs. But I left a message, and then a few days later, our family friend told me that this woman didn't want to hire me because she didn't like my accent. Maybe I sounded too Indian. I still sound Indian after 23 years, but she wanted someone with an American accent. And I was really taken aback because in India, I did public speaking. I was considered very articulate. Uh, my command of English was excellent. I grew up speaking English. I always like maxed or, scored an A or 100 in my grammar and English writing. Till today, I love reading books. So I read and devoured books. So this was such a blow to me and to my confidence and to feeling like I didn't belong because, oh, I'm this foreigner and this is how people view me because I don't sound like an American, even though my English might be better than theirs. Decided I wanted to work for a nonprofit, so I also did a program which helped me get a job with the nonprofit. So I initially worked with people with special needs. And the reason why I didn't pursue my film career was my husband also works in film. And I realized how much work it was. And as much as I loved the film course and being creative, after I did the whole program and graduated, I felt this is too much for me. I wanted to support other people. I wanted to work for a nonprofit which was creating impact, making the world a better place. And after the course I did in working for nonprofits, I got this job. It was working with people with special needs, helping them get integrated into society, helping them when they were on the job, being there for them, supporting them. I worked for a while with them, and then I got a job with an amazing nonprofit called Upwardly Global that helps immigrant professionals get jobs in the US. But even before I worked for Upwardly Global, I was thinking about how hard it was for me to find a network of women who, like me, had moved to a new country, who were facing challenges, struggling, trying to navigate a new country, trying to figure out cultural norms, making friends, dealing with homesickness, etc. And I knew that I wanted it to be a network of professional women, and I was like, maybe I need to start an organization. But then I got the job at Upwardly Global, so I put that on hold. And then after that, I on November 21st, which is my birthday, 2013, I told my husband I am going to launch the Expat Woman. I'd taken some courses in creating a business, but I had no idea how to start how to run a business, which area to go in. And I will do another video about my journey to starting the Expat Woman, what the Expat Woman is all about, how it has evolved. But I would say that's was the journey, my expat journey. And of course, there's motherhood and children and stuff. But in terms of me and my career and my identity, I went from student to spouse to working for a nonprofit to a filmmaker to mom to entrepreneur, and now, of course, I'm also a LinkedIn coach. I may have mentioned in the beginning, I've also come full circle. I'm now also an aspiring YouTuber, and so everything that I learned in film, of course, or most of it I've forgotten, but I feel like the reason I came to the US was to study film, to make videos, and to create impact. And today, the Expat Woman YouTube channel, I also have a LinkedIn YouTube channel. My goal is to educate, inspire, empower, encourage, and so I am using the power of video, of film, to do so. And I love how my expat journey has evolved, pivoted. But again, I came here to study film, and now video has become such a big part of what I want to do. If you know, when I started shooting film, I didn't want to be in front of the camera. And today's video is, there's no script. I'm just looking into the camera and speaking, and it's maybe a bit of rambling, but I'm enjoying it. I really love it. It's so much easier than having a script. I just like talking to the camera. But that's been my journey. So I wanted to leave you with a few lessons. So one is, it is hard, and it gets easier with time, but of course something happens, like when my mom got sick in India and I had to go back. It was happened during the pandemic. I was filled with so much guilt that I wasn't there to help her, and I wish that I lived in India to be near her. So sometimes you think you've settled, this is your new expat life, and then something happens back home, or something happens in the country you live in. But being an expat builds your resilience, it makes you stronger, and you have to just carry on. You pick yourself up and move forward. So the first one is, be resilient, be flexible, be open to changes, to situations that suddenly come up. And I'm lucky that I've only lived in one country, or maybe unlucky. I know there are plenty of folks who have been expats in multiple countries. Sometimes they've had to repatriate, and that's hard as well. But I think being an expat gives us the strength to be open to handling different challenges, because we've stepped out of our comfort zone. And then this, my second uh, tip would be curious, always be learning, because I even today, like, I am constantly listening to podcasts, reading, watching videos on whatever my current focus is on. And right now it is on growing the Expat Women's YouTube channel. So I watch a lot of YouTube videos, how to tutorials, etc., so that I can improve. And you've got to go a little easy with yourself, whatever you're doing in your expat life. Like, just get 1% better, give yourself time, be kind to yourself, don't put a lot of pressure. I remember when I was trying to find a job, I was putting so much pressure on myself, and I wasn't enjoying the country or city I was living in. So it's important to definitely learn to improve your skills, especially if you don't have a work permit and there's so many opportunities. But also be compassionate and kind to yourself. Take time off. Self-care is so important. Mental health is so important. So many of us come from countries where mental health is taboo. Like when I first came in, people are like talking about their therapist so openly. I was so shocked, because in India, if you go to a therapist, you don't tell people. Like, mental health was like, you're not strong enough, you're a weak person. So important to take time off, go for walks, play tourist, light some candles, listen to some music, do yoga, meditate, try to enjoy whatever you have, even if you're feeling depressed. Try and see the positivity in, even if it feels like there's too many challenges and you feel overwhelmed. And then, of course, try and find friends, try to find a network, a tribe. We have a wonderful community, the Expat Women community, but I also have a paid membership, the Expat Women membership, which has women from across the globe, and we are like-minded. We all want to create more influence, more impact, more income, turn our ideas into reality. So I'll share a link to the membership. We always welcome new members. And I'd love to see you in there if you're looking for a community across borders. And thank you for watching. If you like this video, please subscribe. Please share it with anyone who needs to watch it, who needs to be empowered or inspired. Like and leave a comment. Thank you. Bye.